Good Saturday morning, everyone. Welcome back to Weather with Sim again. I hope you guys are all having a great weekend so far. And in today's weather forecast, we're going to be going over the threats for severe weather. Plus, we also are going to be having a ring of fire patterns setting up. And I did actually show you guys that in the last video. But where those winds will be going is where the threats of severe weather will be for the next few days, which will be next week. So definitely get ready for severe weather if you live in the Midwest, Ohio Valley, and perhaps the Great Lakes region. So definitely be ready in that area. But something else I haven't told you guys yet is that I have been moving my camera a lot. My camera used to be up here in the top left hand corner from when you're facing, but my camera probably would have blocked a lot of this, and I want you guys to be able to see it, so that's why I moved it down here. So if that confused you guys, I do apologize for that, but that's the reason why I didn't move it, is so that you guys are able to see what's going on. But let's first go ahead and look at today's weather threat, and as you guys can see, we do have a slight risk for severe thunderstorms across northern North Dakota, back into portions there of northern Minnesota, so that will be the main concern for today. But even that marginal risk does head as far down south as northern Colorado, and even heads as far west as Utah and southeast Idaho. So definitely be ready in this green color, but also this yellow color especially. For the tornado threat for today, we do have a 2% risk for tornadoes across that entire slight risk area. So if you do live in this green color right here that you see on your screen, be aware that there could be some isolated spin up tornadoes. Chances are pretty low, but the chances are there, so it's always good to have an action plan just in case. If you do live across eastern North Dakota back into northern Minnesota, make sure to always be on high alert today, as we could very well be seeing those little spin up tornadoes, like I said, which can still cause a lot of damage. For the wind threat for today, as you can see, we do have a threat for some damaging winds across northern Minnesota heading into eastern North Dakota, so pretty much includes the entirety of the site risk for today, and main concern will be 60 to 70 mile per hour wind gusts in that area. So if you do live in this yellow color, make sure to secure your objects, as we could very well be seeing some higher winds. But even in this brown shaded color, which again does, head as far west as Utah and southeast Idaho, definitely at least be securing some objects, as some 60 mile per hour winds cannot be rolled out in some areas. And then last but not least is the hail threat. Hail not really looking like a huge concern today, especially because the brown color isn't as widespread. So, we are at least going to be watching eastern North Dakota heading into northern Minnesota for the highest potential of some large hail today, but other than that, not really looking like as big as of concern as some damaging winds between 60 and 70 miles per hour. So definitely also be on high alert for some large hail if you do live in that slight risk. Now, for tomorrow's threat, okay, we do have that slight risk continuing across some of the same areas, but does actually move a little bit farther down to the south. And as you can see, there's no tornado threat, thankfully, which is good news. That kind of tells us that the wind shear is probably dying down quite a bit, especially from today. But there is a threat for some large hail and as well as some damaging winds, so we certainly could be seeing a similar thing across central South Dakota, where we could be seeing some 60 and 70 mile per hour winds, but we could even be seeing some 1 to 2 inch size hail in diameter. So definitely get ready for both as we do head into tomorrow if you live in central South Dakota. Now, last but not least is day 3. This is going to be on Monday, July 29th. So that will pretty much be the beginning of next week. And we don't really have any hazards issued for day 3. That's because hazards always remain uncertain when you're looking at least 3 days out. But from what we know so far, it does look like Minnesota, back into Wisconsin, even portions there of Iowa, into pretty much all of Illinois, western Indiana, at least the extreme far western part of it, heading into western Kentucky, and of course, eastern Missouri will definitely be the area to be keeping an eye on. So we will likely, even see an embedded slight risk somewhere in here. I think this will probably be across eastern Iowa and western Illinois, and maybe even including parts of Missouri. So I think it will pretty much be in this area right here if we do see an embedded slight risk, which would more than likely either get issued tomorrow or during the morning hours on Monday next week. So there's definitely something to get ready for. Now, let's look at the flash flood threat, okay? And as you guys can see, we do have a slight risk for flash flooding around the Houston metro area back into parts of southern Texas. So it's definitely going to be an area that we do need to be watching for, as we could very well be seeing a few inches of rainfall along the coast. Otherwise, it's not really looking like we're going to be dealing with much flash flooding. Besides, we could very well be dealing with some isolated flash floods in some areas. But like I said, it's not really looking like a huge concern for today, as we mainly have some marginal threats. But like I said, some isolated flash floods will still be possible in the screen color, so definitely get ready for that, especially if you live across the Rocky Mountains, which, like I said, in the last few videos, it doesn't really take a whole lot of rainfall to cause flash flooding because of how hard the soil is. Now, as we do look at Sunday, okay, Sunday's looking a little bit concerning, okay, as we do have a slight risk for flash flooding across northwest Georgia, northeast Alabama, central Tennessee, central Kentucky, and as well as areas along and south of the Ohio River will be at risk for flash flooding as we do head into Sunday. Some of the model guidance, by the way, does point out a possible risk for flash flooding across southern Indiana and southern Illinois, so this could very well extend into both of those areas in the later Weather Prediction Center updates, and so that will be something to watch for, as the potential for flash flooding could very well exist across both areas. And we also do have another area to watch for tomorrow, okay? We also do have that slight risk for flash flooding continuing into parts of the upper Midwest, especially in northern Minnesota being the highest concern as we do head into Sunday. But even down here across the Houston area, still can't rule out some continuous flooding, especially if we get a lot of rainfall today. But even over here into southwest New Mexico and southeast Arizona, we could even be seeing some areas of flooding too as well. Now, if we look at Monday, okay, Monday's looking like the concern's going to be shifting farther off to the east, as this does include eastern Kentucky, eastern Tennessee, northeast Georgia, heading into western South Carolina, western North Carolina, western Virginia, and as well as western West Virginia will be a concern as we do head into Monday. But even some flash flooding could be possible across the upper Midwest, including Minnesota and Wisconsin, and then down here towards Arizona into New Mexico will still be an area to continue watching. Now, let's look at the total rainfall, okay? We aren't really looking very far out, and that's because we aren't really sure what's going to be happening in the future. We're only looking about 170 hours out, so this is pretty much going to be from now all the way to August 3rd, so we're only looking at least 6 days out, so not too long, and that kind of does bring some certainty that we will be picking up quite a bit of rain across this area right here, and not very many. It doesn't really sound like we're going to be seeing a ton of rain on Sunday across that area, but it does sound like the bigger concern will be Monday, as that slight risk for flash flooding does shift off to the east, and that's because eastern Kentucky, eastern Tennessee, western North Carolina, western Virginia, western West Virginia, and perhaps southern Ohio will be the area to be watching the closest, like I said. But, even though the Weather Prediction Center does have a slight risk for Sunday too as well, we could very well be seeing more rainfall than what this is pointing out. So something that we do need to keep an eye on still on Sunday, even though Monday is looking like the highest concern. Now, let's look at the Climate Prediction Center outlook, and that date is obviously wrong. That hasn't gotten issued on July 28th, because that is pretty much just a few days out from now. This actually got issued yesterday, and this actually should have said July 26th instead of July 28th. Like I said, this was yesterday, so I'm very surprised the experts did get that wrong. But anyway, as you can see from August 1st all the way to August 5th, we will likely see above average temperatures for much of the United States, but the biggest areas will be Wyoming, Montana, heading into Dakotas, and over here towards the northeast being the highest concern for well above average temperatures. But over here, look at that above average precipitation possible across Southern California. This is more like a typical El Nino type setup because, we sometimes even see drier than normal conditions up here in the northern United States during a El Nino. But like I said, we are pretty much in a neutral phase right now, so we can sometimes see both a La Nina and an El Nino type setup. But like I said, this is kind of like an El Nino type setup, as we are seeing below average precipitation across the northern United States and above average precipitation across the southern United States, and sometimes that even heads up the east coast. So pretty wild setup as we do head into the beginning of August. But I mean, we're not in an El Nino, so this isn't really to be exact. But, we will likely see a La Nina as we continue to get closer, so this will obviously change dramatically as we do head into September, because that's about when we should be to the La Nina phase. Now, if we look at the 8 to 14 day outlook, again, the date is wrong, but this is pretty much from August 3rd all the way to August 9th. So as you can see, above average precipitation likely across this area, but of course, we're continuing to see above average temperatures across much of the United States. And, the area that we are most concerned about will be parts of the Rocky Mountains, including Utah. So definitely get ready for some above average temperatures still. But like I said, this area is continuing to see above average precipitation. But, areas that have been seeing somewhat below average precipitation might be seeing, near normal, especially the areas out here in the western United States. But unfortunately, those areas in the central plains and upper plains might as well see a dry period as we do head into the beginning of August, unfortunately, which we could still use some rain across some of the plains. But like I said, we will be dealing with below average precipitation, unfortunately, so that is definitely going to be bad. But thank you guys very much for watching. I hope you guys did enjoy today's video. If you guys do like my new thumbnail, like I said, make sure to let me know down below, because I will like to make things that you guys like. So if you guys do like my new thumbnail, please comment that down below. Plus, don't forget to subscribe and like down below too, as well, as like I said in the last video, this did cost a lot of money to make, and I'm not joking, this did cost a lot of money. So if you guys will please help me out by liking and subscribing down below, that will be fantastic. And like I said, feel free to comment down below on if this is your favorite thumbnail, so that way I can do things that you guys like.